On Mother's Day, my daughter gave her mother-in-law a $20,000 ring and a luxury cruise. I got a $5 plastic flower and a note. The next day she called me 28 times. Please mom, don't sell the company. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. I'm 67 and I thought by now I'd seen every kind of heartbreak life could hand out. Turns out I was wrong. That Sunday started like any other. I got up in my quiet house, made coffee for one, and tried to ignore how empty it felt ever since Harold passed 3 years ago. The quiet used to bring peace. Now it just reminded me of everything that would never be said again. Celeste had called the night before, her voice clipped and distant. Mom, we're having brunch at Wesley's mother's house tomorrow. You should come, 1 o'clock sharp. No warmth. No, we'd love to see you. Just a formality passed off as an invitation. I got to Francine's house right at 1. The driveway was packed with fancy cars and I could hear laughter floating from the backyard. Francine had always been everything I wasn't. Polished, popular, picture perfect. Her place looked straight out of a catalog. All white stone and fresh cut flowers. When I stepped through the gate, they were all out on the patio. Celeste was next to Francine, whispering and giggling like they shared some secret. Wesley was manning the grill, putting on the good son act. Francine trained him for Darlene. Francine called out with that perfect smile of hers, "So glad you could make it." Celeste looked over, gave a quick nod. "Hi Mom, you can sit over there." She pointed to a chair at the far end of the table, way off from the main group. I sat down and kept quiet while everyone chatted like I wasn't even there. Wesley's sister showed up with her kids. Francine's bridge club friends were there too, even the neighbors. Everybody had a place, except me. Then came the gift giving. "Oh Francine, we have something special for you," Celeste said, standing up with a kind of excitement I hadn't seen in years. Wesley stood beside her, holding a small velvet box and an envelope. Francine gasped when she opened the box. Inside was a diamond ring that caught every ray of sunlight. "Celeste, honey, this is too much." "It's not too much for the woman who raised such an incredible son," Celeste said, throwing her arms around Francine. "And there's more." The envelope held cruise tickets, 2 weeks in the Mediterranean, first class, everything. Francine started crying. Everyone clapped, and Celeste stood there, glowing. I felt a chill sink deep in my gut. 20 grand at least, maybe more. Then Wesley said, "And now for Grandma Darlene." But the excitement had drained from his voice. Celeste came over with a small gift bag in her hand. Inside was a plastic flower, the kind you'd grab at a dollar store, and a greeting card that looked like it had been yanked off the shelf at the pharmacy last second. I opened it. The printed part read, "Happy Mother's Day," and below that, in Celeste's handwriting, "Thanks for everything, Mom. Thanks for everything." Like I was some cashier, ringing up her groceries. The whole table fell silent. I could feel the eyes on me, waiting to see what I'd say. Francine cleared her throat, in that nervous way people do when they're uncomfortable. And even Wesley looked awkward. "It's lovely," I said, barely audible. "Thank you, sweetheart." But Celeste had already turned back to Francine, all lit up, diving into some story about the cruise spots they picked. The conversation kept moving like I wasn't there, and I sat there holding that $5 plastic flower, feeling smaller than I had in years. I stayed for another hour, watching my daughter shower warmth on a woman she's known for a dozen years, while I sat there like an old obligation. When I finally stood up and said I had to go, Celeste barely looked over. "Thanks for coming, Mom. Drive safe." The whole ride back was a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about that ring, those cruise tickets, and the look on Celeste's face when she gave them. When was the last time she'd looked at me like that? When was the last time she'd put that kind of care into anything she gave me? I pulled into my driveway and just sat in the car for a long time, staring at that ridiculous flower. 43 years of being her mother, and this is what I meant to her, a clearance rack afterthought. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept seeing the scene in my head, over and over, wondering where I'd gone wrong. I built the company from the ground up, gave jobs to people, gave back to the town, but somehow I'd failed at the one thing that should have mattered more than all of it, earning my daughter's love. I got up and went to my home office, where I kept everything that mattered: tax papers, contracts, old financial records, the full picture of what I'd built with my life. And I started asking myself, what was all this really for? That sleepless night turned into a whole sleepless week. I couldn't shake the image of that plastic flower, or the way Celeste looked at Francine with real affection. It ate at me like something alive. I needed answers, not the kind you get from yelling or heartfelt talks, but real ones, the kind that show up in bank logs and forgotten receipts. That Saturday I parked myself in the office and started digging through filing cabinets I hadn't opened in years. Eugene used to give me hell for being a pack rat, keeping every paper, every slip. Asterisk, you never know when you'll need proof, I used to tell him. I never thought I'd have to gather proof that I'm her mother. The first file I opened was titled Celeste College. Inside were tuition records, housing payments, and a bunch of smaller expenses I'd completely forgotten about: books, a laptop, even the parking tickets she racked up on campus. Altogether, $47,000. That doesn't even include the car I bought her junior year when hers broke down. But that was just the start. There was another folder labeled Wedding, O&D. One day, $58,000 gone. The venue, flowers, food, her dress, the photographer. I covered it all because I wanted everything to be perfect for her. Wesley's parents showed up with a case of wine. Then I hit the house files. When Celeste and Wesley got married, they had their sights set on a place in Riverside, real upscale area. Their salaries didn't cut it, not for that kind of mortgage, so I co-signed. And 2 years later, when Wesley's business started crumbling, I quietly covered the mortgage for 6 straight months. They never found out. I made sure of it. Then came the cars, 3 separate ones over the years. Each time it was just temporary, just until things settled down. Somehow the payments always fell to me. I stopped questioning it, just added them to my bills. But it was the emergency fund that really hit a nerve. In 2019, Wesley's landscaping company nearly collapsed. Bad decisions, wrong people, everything went south. They were drowning. Celeste called, sobbing, begging. I wired $85,000 that same day. No agreement, no repayment plan. Just a mom stepping in. 6 months later, they bought a boat. I leaned back and stared at the calculator. In 15 years, I'd handed over nearly $400,000 to Celeste and Wesley. College, wedding, the house, the cars, bailing them out more than once, plus all the extras I stopped counting. $400,000. More than some people earn in their entire lives. And yesterday, I got a plastic flower. The part that hurt wasn't the money. I've done well, built a strong consulting business, made smart financial moves. I could afford to help. What hurt was realizing that all that giving had turned invisible. To Celeste, it wasn't kindness. It was just the default. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through a year's worth of our texts. Her messages were short, to the point. Can you grab the dry cleaning? Wesley needs the truck. The kids need supplies. Always needing something. Never offering anything. Never a simple, how are you, Mom? Never just checking in. But Francine gets cruise, vacations, and diamonds. I opened my laptop and pulled up the mortgage info on Celeste's house. Still in my name. Of course, the payments had been set up to pull straight from my business account, automated years back so I wouldn't have to deal with them. That same account, I pulled up the monthly statements and started combing through them line by line. Wesley handled lawn care for 3 of my commercial properties. I paid him 30% over the going rate, though I never brought it up. Celeste did part-time bookkeeping for some of my smaller clients, $1,200 a month for maybe 6 hours of work. They weren't just my daughter and son. They were full-grown adults in their 30s whose entire lifestyle was built around my financial backing. And yet I'd somehow ended up cast as the bad guy, the out-of-touch mom who couldn't connect, who just didn't get it. They'd painted me as cold and distant, all while living off the support I gave without question. I shut the laptop and looked around my office. The walls were covered with framed photos from company events, plaques from the Chamber of Commerce, newspaper articles about deals and milestones. but not a single recent photo of me and Celeste. She'd stopped wanting to be in pictures with me a long time ago. The desk clock said 4:30 p.m. I'd been digging through records for 8 hours, and the reality couldn't have been clearer. I'd spent years trying to earn my daughter's love with money, and all I'd done was teach her that I was a paycheck, not a parent. My phone buzzed. A text from Celeste. Mom, Wesley's truck broke down. Can we borrow yours for a few days? I stared at the message a long time before I answered. I'll think about it. For the first time in years, I didn't say yes right away. That night, I made a decision that would shift everything. I called my lawyer. Monday morning, I sat across from Loretta Hahn, my attorney for the last 12 years. Her office overlooked the downtown skyline, and from her window I could see my own building. Years of work, right there in front of me. Darlene, you look tired, Loretta said, settling in behind her desk with a cup of tea. What's going on? I'd run the conversation over in my head all weekend, but sitting there, the words came out heavy. I want to talk about selling my business. Loretta's eyebrows lifted. Hartwell Consulting. You've spent 3 decades building that. It's your legacy. That's exactly the problem, I said, my voice low. I need to know what it would mean for my family if I sold. I watched her face shift as she realized this wasn't just a passing thought. She grabbed a legal pad, her expression tightening into focus. Tell me what's on your mind, she said. And for the next hour, I laid out everything I'd uncovered. The mortgage, the contracts, the tangled mess of financial ties I'd built without realizing it. Loretta listened, jotting things down now and then, her expression unreadable. So, if you sell the business, she said eventually, Wesley's going to lose his main commercial clients. Celeste would lose her bookkeeping income too, and they'd have to qualify for their mortgage on their own. That's right. Loretta leaned back in her chair. Darlene, can I ask what changed? Last time we talked, you mentioned growing the business, maybe even making Celeste a partner. I told her about Mother's Day, about the plastic flower, the diamond ring, and the years I'd spent feeling more like a walking bank than a mother. Loretta didn't interrupt, but I saw the way she flinched at parts of it. I see, she said once I finished. And you're thinking about selling the business too, in a sense, figure out who your daughter really is. I told her, right now, I honestly don't know if she loves me or just my checkbook. Loretta gave a slow nod. There are ways to ease into this. We could restructure gradually, taper off your financial support over time. No, I said, flat. Slow changes, just give people space to adapt, to twist things in their favor. If I do this, it has to be clean. We spent the next hour going over the nuts and bolts. Loretta had connections, brokers who handled consulting firms, people who knew the process inside and out. She figured it could take 3 to 6 months, depending on how fast I wanted to move. I'll need full confidentiality, I told her. No one can know until everything's finalized. Of course, but Darlene, once this happens, there's no undoing it. Are you ready for how Celeste might respond? I thought about that fake flower, sitting on my kitchen counter. I'm ready for her to show me exactly who she is. Later that day, I started shifting the pieces. I called Wesley's landscaping company and told him I was reevaluating vendors for my commercial sites. Budget pressure, I said, needed to gather new bids. The panic hit his voice instantly. Mrs. Hartwell, we can work something out. Lower our rates, whatever it takes. It's not the price, Wesley. I'm just looking at options. Then I reached out to a few smaller clients who'd been using Celeste for bookkeeping. Told them I was changing my referral process, and they'd need to secure different services within 60 days. Kept it formal, professional, no personal commentary. Celeste called that night, her voice tight, uneasy. Mom, Mrs. Patterson said, you're not referring bookkeepers anymore. Did I mess something up? Not at all, dear. I'm just cutting back on how I manage things day to day. Simplifying, that's all. But I still need those clients. That's my main source of income, and I can't afford to lose that right now. I'm sure you'll find something else soon, I said evenly. You're smart. You'll land on your feet. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Mom, are you all right? You've been acting off lately. I'm fine, Celeste. Just got my hands full with a few business matters. After we hung up, I stayed in the kitchen for a while, sitting still, my eyes fixed on that faded plastic flower by the window. It had been there for years, dusty and ignored, but that night, it pulled something out of me I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Control, not the kind that comes from writing checks or fixing someone else's mess, but the deeper kind, the kind that comes when you finally start choosing for yourself and not for everyone else. The next few weeks slipped into a pattern. I had meetings with interested buyers, went over every line of my financials, and slowly started untangling the knots that tied my business to the way Celeste had been living for years. Loretta managed most of the legal documents, but I made sure I was at the table for every single decision. Keeping it all hidden was the part I hated most. I was never good at holding things back from Celeste, even when it might have been the smarter thing to do. But this didn't feel optional. It felt necessary. About 3 weeks into the process, I got a call out of the blue from Wesley. "Mrs. Hartwell, someone at the chamber told me you might be thinking about selling the business. Is that true?" My heart kicked up, but my voice didn't show it. "People like to talk, Wesley. You know how that goes. But if you were making a move like that, you'd give us a heads up, right? It would impact our contracts. If I decide to make any major changes, you'll be notified the proper way." That night, Celeste showed up at my front door. She looked drained. Her hair was sloppily tied back, and she had on that worn-out college sweatshirt she always went to when she didn't feel like trying. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, brushing past me into the living room without waiting for an invitation. "I'm hearing things about Wesley's accounts, my own bookkeeping clients. Now people saying you're selling off the business. What's actually going on?" I sat down across from her, rested my hands in my lap. "I'm reevaluating what's important to me." She frowned. "What does that even mean?" "It means I'm 67, Celeste. I'm tired of carrying other people's weight and calling it love." Her face turned red. "Is this about Mother's Day? About the gift? I'm sorry if it wasn't enough. We've been struggling with money." "Okay." I almost laughed. Struggling while living in a house I paid for, driving a car I bought, working jobs I arranged. But I bit my tongue. "This isn't about some gift or one day, Celeste. This is about me finally figuring out what really matters and what doesn't." She left 20 minutes later, still upset, still confused. I watched her drive away in the car I'd co-signed, heading back to the house where I still covered the mortgage every month. But that wasn't going to last much longer. The call came in on a Tuesday morning, right while I was going over the final version of the purchase agreement. Loretta had finally locked in a buyer, a larger consulting firm, trying to strengthen their regional reach and clearly seeing value in what we'd built. The offer on the table was generous, more than I'd projected or even hoped for. Just as I was about to sign off on the preliminary documents, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. It showed my home number. That stopped me cold. I was sitting in Loretta's office. No one should be at my house. "Hello, Mrs. Hartwell. This is Elliot Mercer from Mercer and Associates. I'm trying to reach you regarding the acquisition of Whitaker Solutions." My heart dropped into my stomach. "I'm sorry. Who is this?" "This is Elliot Mercer. My firm is managing the due diligence process for the acquisition. I might have dialed the wrong number. You meant to call my office." "Yes. My apologies. I didn't realize I'd reached your personal line. Someone answered and told me they were your assistant. They said it was fine to go over the transaction details." I closed my eyes and exhaled. There was only one person with a key to my house. One person who would feel bold enough to pick up my phone and pretend they had the right to speak for me. "Thank you for calling, Mr. Mercer. From now on, please direct all communications through my attorney, Loretta Hahn." I ended the call without another word and immediately called home. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. "Mom's house. This is Celeste. What are you doing in my house?" There was a pause on the other end. Then her tone shifted. "Mom, I thought you had a meeting this morning. I just came by to check on the place. Water the plants. I don't own any plants that need watering." Another pause. This one stretched longer, like she was weighing her options and realizing none of them would hold up. "All right, fine. I was looking for something. Wesley thought you might have some of his old tax documents stored here. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. I picked it up in case it was something important. I could hear the cracks forming in her voice, her confidence breaking apart word by word. "Celeste, I'm coming home. We're going to talk. Don't leave." The drive from Loretta's office back to my house normally takes 15 minutes. That morning, it felt like an hour, like I was dragging myself through every second of that phone call again. Hearing her voice, pretending to be my assistant, making decisions she had no business touching. It was the kind of thing you don't forget, the sheer nerve of it, the kind of audacity that doesn't just show up overnight. It grows in silence and entitlement over time. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was still parked in front. I stepped into the house and found her seated at my desk in the home office, surrounded by a mess of scattered paperwork, contracts, statements, sensitive files she had no right to read. She looked up when I walked in. Her face shifted between guilt and some tired version of boldness. "Did you find what you were looking for?" I asked. She nodded toward the documents like they could explain everything. "Mom, what is all this? Are you actually selling the company?" I walked over, started gathering the paperwork, everything from the financial statements to the confidentiality agreements, pulling it all out of her reach. "These are private. This isn't yours to touch. Private. Mom, this isn't just something you can handle on your own. It affects every single one of us. Wesley's entire livelihood is tied to the contracts you've built, and my own income depends on the steady stream of clients you refer to me. You can't just make a decision to sell without sitting down and talking to us first." I stopped pretending to be distracted by the stack of papers in front of me and looked up, really looked at her. She was 35, sitting in the seat I paid for, at the desk I worked behind for decades, and she was demanding answers like she had a stake in something I built from the ground up. How did I let things get to this point? "Actually, Celeste, I can sell the business without running it by anyone. It's my company. It belongs to me. But what about us? What about the family? What about the family?" I repeated it slowly, like it was a phrase in a language I hadn't spoken in years. "When exactly did you start giving a damn about this family?" Her face flushed deep pink. "I've always cared. You're my mother. Am I, or have I just been your personal bank account this whole time?" The silence between us stretched long and tight. Outside, someone's dog barked, sharp and steady, a reminder that the world was still spinning normally while mine cracked down the middle. Celeste's voice came back softer, quieter. "Mom, if this is about Mother's Day, I already said I was sorry. We can plan something special next year." "Next year?" I said it under my breath, just like last year, and the year before that. It's always next year when it comes to treating me with the kind of respect you hand out so easily to everyone else. I moved around and sat in the chair opposite mine, across the desk that had always made it clear who was in charge. I looked at my daughter with new eyes, like I was seeing her not for the first time, but for the first time honestly. "Do you even realize how much money I've poured into helping you and Wesley over the years?" She shifted, uncomfortable now. "We never asked you to keep score. $400,000. That's not even counting the mortgage I'm still covering on your house, or the contracts I lined up to keep Wesley's business alive, or the clients I passed along so you could keep your own income flowing." Celeste's lips parted like she had something to say, then closed again. She hadn't expected real numbers. "I'm not saying any of this to guilt you," I went on. "That's not what this is. I need you to understand, I've been financing your entire adult life, and somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing me as your mom. I became a line of credit, a resource to draw from." "That's not true, is it? When's the last time you picked up the phone just to talk? Not for a favor, not for help, just to check in. When's the last time you asked how I was holding up, how I've been coping since your father died? If I've felt lonely in this huge, quiet house?" Her expression cracked. "Mom, when Francine got a $20,000 ring and a cruise, and I got a plastic flower, it wasn't about the money. It was about the effort, the attention. You put more thought into her gift than you ever put into mine." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I couldn't stop now. The words had been buried for years, and they were clawing their way out. "You treat Francine like she's family because she never asks for a damn thing. Winning her love is something you have to earn, but when it comes to me, I'm just supposed to keep showing up with my checkbook open. No questions asked, no needs of my own, just endlessly making sure everyone else gets to live the life they want. I love you, Mom, she whispered, soft enough it barely cut through the space between us. Do you love me, or do you love what I make possible for you? She didn't answer, and we both knew exactly why. The silence pressed in until my phone rang, sharp and sudden. Wesley's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it, Celeste said, her voice low and tense. I answered anyway. Hello, Wesley. Mrs. Hartwell, he said, formal, like always. Celeste told me about the business being sold. We really need to sit down as a family and talk. This decision, it affects every one of us. No, Wesley, it doesn't affect all of us. It affects me. It's my business. And it's mine to sell. But our contracts, this is our work, our income, and for years, your work and your income have been my problem. I've carried it long enough. It's time for you both to start figuring out how to carry yourselves. I ended the call without waiting for a response. When I looked up, Celeste was still staring at me, wide-eyed like she couldn't recognize the person sitting in front of her. Mom, you're not actually serious, are you? I've never said anything more serious in my life. That's when the panic kicked in. The next morning, my phone started buzzing at exactly 6:47 a.m. Celeste's name lit up the screen. I let it ring out. She called again, then again. By the time I'd taken a few sips of my coffee, she'd already tried me 12 times. I finally answered when the 13th call came through. Mom, please, we need to talk about this. We talked yesterday. Celeste and I believe I was perfectly clear. You can't just wreck everything because of one stupid Mother's Day gift. I put my coffee down harder than I meant to. That old anger started rising from somewhere deep. This has never been about a single gift, and you know that. Don't insult me. Then what's it about? What do you even want from me? I want you to stop seeing me as some endless supply of money and start seeing me as a full person, not an ATM, not a service, just me. I do see you. You're my mother. When's the last time you treated me like one? She went quiet. Then, Mom, if you go through with selling the business, we lose everything. The house, Wesley's accounts, my client base. We'll be starting from nothing. Yes, you will. And maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. She hung up before I could say another word. 20 minutes later, the phone rang again. Then again, and again. I stopped counting after the 15th time. Every voicemail had a slightly different pitch, pleading, promising, threatening, trying to twist my words, twist the guilt. She rotated through every tactic she'd mastered over the years, like she was reading from a playbook she'd worn down to the spine. Mom, please call me back. We can still figure this out. We don't have to let it get this far. Wesley's been having chest pains from all the stress, and I'm seriously worried. Do you really want to see him end up in the hospital over this? I'm sorry about the flower. I really am, and I'll find a way to make it up to you. But I'm asking you, please, don't sell the company. People are going to talk. They're already saying things, and they're not kind. They'll say you're being cold, that you're being petty and cruel. And is that really what you want hanging over your name? Do you want that to be how people remember you? By noon, she had called 28 times. I know, because I'd started counting around call number 12. Each one another knock on the wall she built herself into. It was finally sinking in. Everything she had, everything she built her pride around, had my fingerprints on it. And I was done being the one who gave, and gave while everyone else took without hesitation. The doorbell rang at exactly 2:30 in the afternoon. I walked over, looked through the peephole, and saw Celeste standing there. Her face was a mess, red, swollen, like she'd been crying for hours. Wesley stood a few steps behind her, stiff and fuming, barely keeping it together. I opened the door, but I didn't invite them inside. Mom, please, Celeste said before I could even speak. We need to talk this through like reasonable adults. We already tried that yesterday, I said. But you weren't interested in a real conversation. You were more interested in poking through my files and pretending you worked for me. That's not talking. That's manipulation. Wesley stepped closer. Mrs. Hartwell, with all due respect, this isn't just about you. There's more than your side to think about. We've got a family to protect here. I lowered my voice. So do I. And right now, I'm thinking about what's best for mine. What's best is all of you finally learning how to stand on your own 2 feet. Celeste's face fell. Mom, I'm begging you. Don't do this to us. You're begging now. When's the last time you actually asked how I was holding up? When was the last time you invited me over without a holiday or some event as an excuse? When's the last time you called me without needing something? She opened her mouth like she had an answer, but nothing came out. We both knew she couldn't remember. That's what I thought. I said, you only reach out when you're in need. You only show up when you want something in return. You only care when there's something on the line. Wesley couldn't hold it in anymore. This is insane. You're punishing us for being successful, for having built something real together. Successful? I let out a laugh, sharp and dry. Wesley, you're 37 years old and you've never once paid your own mortgage. Not even once. And Celeste, every dollar she earns comes from jobs I line up for her. So don't stand there and tell me you built anything. You call that successful? We call it family, Celeste said, her voice cracking under the weight of everything she'd kept in for far too long, the words almost catching in her throat as they came out. Families are supposed to be there for each other. That help. It's not supposed to be one. It's supposed to go both ways, she added, her voice more defensive now, as if saying it out loud would make it true. And what exactly have you done to help me? I asked, my tone quiet but sharp enough to cut through the room. What have you actually contributed to this family, besides taking from it? The question just sat there, thick and heavy, like a brick laid between us that neither of us could move. Celeste looked at Wesley for backup, then back at me, her mouth opening like she might say something, like maybe there was something good buried deep down, but nothing came. Finally, she said, almost too soft to hear, I gave you grandchildren. No, you didn't, I said, not flinching. You moved 3 states away, and now we only see you when it's convenient. You show up twice a year, maybe. Caleb and Clara, I haven't seen their faces in nearly 8 months. Her face went pale, completely drained. Even Wesley looked like he wanted to disappear into the wall. You want to know what family really looks like? I asked, not giving her space to retreat. Francine's family, they call her every Sunday, like clockwork. They visit just because they want to. They remember her birthday every year, without some calendar alert or last-minute text. They actually think about her. They listen when she talks. That's why she got the ring. That's why they gave her the cruise. Because she matters to them, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, out of love. Celeste was crying openly now, shoulders shaking, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Too much had gone unsaid for too long. I spent 30 years of my life building a business from nothing, from scratch, so that my family would have more than I ever did, so you could have security, options, chances I never got. I didn't do it to be admired. I did it because I thought it would mean something. But somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing any of that. You stopped noticing. You started expecting. I became a source, a provider, not a person. You looked right through me. Mom, please, she said, her voice shaking. I'm sorry. I'll do better. I will. I'll be better. No, I said, meeting her eyes. You're only sorry because you're afraid of what you're losing, not because you truly understand what you've done. Wesley stepped in, reaching for her arm like he was ready to end it right there. Let's go. This is a waste of time. She's made her decision. But Celeste didn't move. She pulled away from him and turned back toward me. Wait. Her voice was quiet, but there was something in it, something real. For the first time in years, I saw a look I hadn't seen since she was a kid. Raw, scared, unguarded. Mom, what do you want from me? Just tell me what I need to do. Tell me how to fix this. I looked at her, not just glanced, but really looked. She was 35, standing on my porch with tears running down her face, finally asking the right question, finally trying, but it was too late. I want you to figure out who you are without my money propping you up, I said. I want you to build relationships that aren't based on what someone can give you. I want you to understand love, real love, has nothing to do with transactions. And then what? She asked. If I figure that out, if I change, Does that mean you'll change your mind? I shook my head slowly. Celeste, this isn't about punishing you. I'm not selling the business to hurt you. I'm selling it so I can finally stop carrying the weight of everybody else's choices. I'm 67 years old. I need to find out what my life looks like when I'm living it for me. I took a step back and slowly began to close the front door behind me. Mom, wait, I love you, she called out, her voice trembling, almost breaking. I really do love you. I stopped. My hand rested on the knob, unmoving. I love you too, Celeste. That's exactly why I'm doing this. I shut the door gently but firmly and stood still, listening as her cries filled the porch, raw and unfiltered, echoing against the siding for 10 long minutes before the sound of tires on gravel finally signaled they were gone. The sale would become official in 2 weeks. 3 months after signing the final papers, I found myself on the front steps of my new cottage, watching the evening sun bleed across the surface of the lake, casting everything in soft golds and washed-out pinks. This place was smaller, quieter, simpler than the one I'd walked away from, but in a way that felt right. The old house had never truly belonged to me. It had always been tangled up with obligations, family baggage, expectations that never led anywhere good. There were no ghosts in these walls, no rooms reminding me of who didn't call, who didn't come home, or what promises we failed to keep. The transition came easier than I'd imagined. Decades of business records, legal files, and personal letters, all of it packed up and stored without a second thought. I brought only the things that still meant something. A small stack of family photographs, Eugene's favorite books with his underlined pages and folded corners, and the handmade quilt my mother had sewn the year Celeste was born, the stitching still tight despite its age. The cottage was fully furnished, which was perfect. I had no interest in dragging old furniture or old feelings into this fresh start. The previous owners left behind soft, lived-in couches, a sturdy wooden table, and a backyard garden that hadn't been cared for in a while but still held promise. I'd never had time for that sort of thing. Gardening, pruning, watching something grow. Now, I had all the time in the world. Celeste hadn't called in 6 weeks. That silence hit hard in the chest. But with it came something I hadn't expected. A strange, welcome clarity. I'd spent so much of my life watching her, waiting for her approval, like it would finally give my life weight. Now, I was learning to define myself by the quiet around me, the lack of chaos, the stillness that felt earned. Selling the business gave me more than enough to live comfortably. No cutting corners, no fear. I established a trust fund for my grandkids, money they'd get directly when they turned 18. No strings, no conditions, no parental hands getting involved. Just opportunity placed directly in their reach. It was my way of giving them a clean slate without feeding into the mistakes their parents kept repeating. I also went ahead and paid off the mortgage on Celeste and Wesley's house. No big announcement, no letter in the mail, just the payment and a closed file. It wasn't a gift, it was closure. They now owned their house outright, and they knew there would never be another dime coming from me. That was the final check I'd ever write with their names in mind. My phone rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. I looked down. It was Connie, my neighbor across the lake. We'd grown close over the past several weeks, talking during our morning walks, sharing a bottle of wine on her porch in the evenings. "Darlene, are you around for dinner tomorrow?" she asked. "My son and daughter-in-law are coming by, and I'd really like you to meet them." "I'd like that," I said, and this time, I truly meant it. Connie's connection with her kids was everything I'd once wanted but had never found. It was open and mutual, based on real care rather than duty or guilt. After we ended the call, I poured a glass of wine and stepped down to the dock. The lake stretched out in front of me, calm and reflective, holding on to the last streaks of sunlight like it didn't want to let go. A small family of ducks glided quietly across the lake. The ducklings lined up behind their mother with almost military precision. The water was calm, the sky overcast, and I was content just sitting there, doing nothing. Then my phone buzzed. A text. For a second, less than that, really, I thought maybe it was Celeste. My chest tightened without permission. But it wasn't her. It was Loretta, my attorney. "Thought you'd want to know. Wesley's landscaping business filed for bankruptcy yesterday," She followed it up with, Celeste's been looking for work at the elementary school. How are you holding up? I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the screen, watching the words settle like dust. Then I finally typed back, I'm doing well, thanks for the update. And it was true, mostly. I did feel a heaviness for them, but it wasn't guilt. Not anymore. They were grown, they'd made their choices over and over, and now they were finally living with the outcomes. That's what adulthood is, cleaning up after yourself. A loon cried out across the water, its eerie voice cutting through the stillness and bouncing off the surrounding hills. I'd never heard a loon before moving out here. Honestly, there were a lot of things I'd never experienced, not while I was constantly juggling other people's drama, other people's expectations. But that was changing. Tomorrow, I was starting a pottery class at the community center in town. I'd also signed up for a book club that met on Tuesday nights, something I would have rolled my eyes at 10 years ago. None of it was flashy. None of it mattered to anyone but me. And that was the point. I chose those things because they sparked something in me, not because someone else needed me to be somewhere, to fix something, to hold their world together. What surprised me most about this new way of living was how much lighter everything felt. For so long, I'd been dragging around other people's wreckage, carrying the burden of their mistakes, their broken finances, their messes disguised as emergencies. I used to tell myself that was love, but it wasn't. It was enabling, and it had damaged all of us, quietly and deeply. What I'm starting to learn is that real love sometimes says no. Real love steps back and lets people fall down when they need to. It doesn't cushion every blow or solve every mess. Sometimes, real love walks away, not out of anger, but out of hope that the person left standing will figure it out on their own. 6 months passed, and then, one afternoon, I opened the mailbox and found a letter, not an email, not a message, on my phone. An actual, handwritten letter, folded neatly, addressed in an unfamiliar hand. The return address said Celeste, but the handwriting didn't look like hers. It was steadier, like whoever wrote it had slowed down to get the words right. Dear Mom, it began. I've been trying to write this letter for months now, but I never knew how to begin. I kept thinking about asking you to come back, to make things okay again, to fix all of it like you used to. But now I finally understand that the way things used to be wasn't working for any of us. I set the paper down and exhaled. My hands were trembling a little. Then I picked it back up. Wesley and I are getting divorced. I'm sure by now you've heard about the bankruptcy, about how I've been working at the school just to get by. This past year has been the most painful, most difficult year I've ever had to go through, but it's also been the most honest. I've had to really look at myself, at who I am without your money, without your constant safety net to fall into. I had to figure out how to stand on my own 2 feet. The next line stopped me. I'm not writing to ask you for anything. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for assuming you'd always be there to catch me. I'm sorry for not appreciating you while you were still holding everything together. I'm sorry for treating you like a task to handle instead of a human being with feelings of your own. I'm sorry for all the time I spent holding resentment against you for things that were never really your fault. Now I get it, why you let the business go. You weren't trying to hurt me. You were trying to give us both a way out. I just hate that it took me this long to understand that. I'm not expecting you to forgive me, and I'm not asking for it either. I just needed to tell you, I finally get what you were trying to say. Family isn't about keeping score or measuring worth by what someone can do for you. It's about being present, staying engaged, and caring for someone simply because they matter, not because they're useful. I hope wherever you are now, you've found that missing piece of peace you were always searching for. You deserve to rest in it. Love, Celeste. P.S. I still have the plastic flower. It's sitting on my kitchen window ledge, and every time I glance at it, I see your face from that day. I remember the exact second I realized I'd hurt you deeper than I ever meant to. I'm sorry it took me this long to want to make that right. I sat out on my porch for what felt like forever after I read that letter, just watching the sun sink low over the water. When the light was almost gone, I went inside and started writing a reply. Dear Celeste, I wrote, thank you for your letter. It meant more than you probably realize, but I didn't send it. Not that day, not the day after, or the one after that. Some pain needs time to settle before it can be touched again without doing more damage. Some relationships need distance before they can be rebuilt, this time with honesty instead of expectation. Maybe one day we'll find our way back, maybe not. But for now, I'm okay with where things stand. I'm finally breathing again. No more guilt. No more strings. No more trying to earn a love that should have been there all along. I'm 67, and for the first time in what feels like a lifetime, I'm actually living for myself, and that's enough. It started with a knock on the door. Not urgent, not desperate, just soft, steady. Like someone who wasn't trying to force their way in, just hoping they might still be welcome. It wasn't Celeste. It was a woman from the local library. Her name was Ruth. White curls. Wore 2 brooches even though one would have been enough. She'd heard I was good with numbers, good with people, and they needed someone to help seniors with budgeting. Nothing big, just once a week, nothing permanent, she'd said. Just something to keep your brain moving. I almost said no, but I didn't. The following Wednesday, I was seated at a folding table beside a man named Tom whose wife had passed last winter. He couldn't figure out where their retirement funds were going, and he didn't trust the new online portals. I spent 2 hours walking him through every login screen, every tax form, every bill they'd been paying twice. He started crying halfway through, not out of sadness, but relief. "Thank you," he said. I thought I was going crazy. And just like that, I remembered who I was when I wasn't someone's mother, someone's ATM, someone's fix-it. I was useful, not because people needed something from me, but because I had something to offer. There's a difference. Every Friday, I went back, helped widows read their insurance paperwork, walked couples through planning for a future they weren't sure they still wanted. I wasn't saving anyone, just showing up. That's the thing about quiet lives. They're not empty. They're just honest. I kept my phone on silent those days. Celeste still called, every couple weeks, left messages, not the kind I was used to. No requests, just updates. Clara got a B+ on her math test. She was so proud. Caleb joined the school band, saxophone. "You'd like the sound. I made lasagna tonight. Your old recipe. It came out okay." I listened, but I never called back. Some wounds don't close with words. They need time to settle into scars before they can be touched. Instead, I poured myself into new rituals. Morning walks with Connie. Sunday mornings at the farmer's market. One long afternoon organizing Eugene's tools in the shed, just to feel like he was still a part of something. One night, Connie's son asked me to come by their lake house for dinner. His wife was kind, quiet, not much older than Celeste. They had a baby girl, Leela, just learning to walk. She came toddling over and dropped a wet, half-chewed biscuit in my lap like it was treasure. I held it like it was. "You're great with her," Connie said. "You ever think about mentoring? The school's always looking." I didn't answer. Not yet. Not fully. I wasn't ready to take someone else's child under my wing. Not when I'd spent so long watching my own drift away. But later that night, sitting on my porch, I thought about it, about the parts of me that still had something left to give. Not in the way I used to. Not sacrifice. Not blind devotion. Just presence. It's strange. Starting from scratch at 67, you don't think reinvention is for people your age. That's a young person's game, right? But maybe not. Maybe we just stop reinventing because we get tired of being disappointed. And yet, here I was, new zip code, new neighbors, new calendar, filled with things no one else had scheduled for me. One morning in early spring, I drove out to a small town 2 hours away just to see the old textile mill I'd always passed, but never stopped at. I had no reason, no plan. I just wanted to see it. I walked through the museum, listened to the volunteer explain the machines. He was 81, smelled like peppermint and sawdust. We talked for an hour. He said, "You, from around here?" "No," I told him, "but I'm starting to be." Later, at a gas station, I bought a postcard and mailed it to my own address. On the back, I wrote, "I'm still here, still learning, still breathing, and that's enough." It showed up 2 days later. I pinned it to the fridge, a reminder. The truth is, I don't know if Celeste and I will ever be close again. Some things you can't force. Some bridges don't burn. They just erode, piece by piece, until there's nothing sturdy left to cross. But I'm open. Not waiting, not hoping, just open. If she finds her way back, it won't be to the house I built for her. It'll be to the one I built for me, and she have to knock this time. It was the second Saturday in June when the knock came again. Not the library lady, not Connie, not delivery. It was softer this time. Hesitant, one knock, then quiet. When I opened the door, Clara was standing there. My granddaughter, 13 now, taller than I remembered, with dark hair tied back in a lazy braid and a duffel bag at her feet. She smiled like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. Mom dropped me off. She said you might not answer, but I wanted to try anyway. I stared at her a long time, heart caught in my throat. Then I stepped back and opened the door wider. Come on in, I said. Hope you're hungry. That night, we made grilled cheese and tomato soup from scratch. She grated the cheese wrong, dumped in too much salt, burned her wrist on the stove. But she laughed through all of it. She said you wouldn't talk to her anymore, Clara said, later, curled up on my couch with a blanket. But she told me you used to read to her every night when she was little, said you had a voice like wind in the trees. She remembered that. I asked. She remembers everything. She just doesn't know how to say it out loud. We didn't talk much after that. I gave her the guest room, tucked in with the old quilt her great-grandmother made. She fell asleep in 10 minutes. I, on the other hand, sat in the living room till after midnight, staring out at the lake, wondering what it meant that Celeste had let her come. The next morning, over scrambled eggs, Clara handed me a folded note. She wrote this last night. Said to give it to you if things felt ... okay. I unfolded it slowly. Celeste's handwriting, still neat, still familiar. Mom, if you're reading this, it means you opened the door. I didn't expect that, but I hoped. I know I've hurt you. I know you don't owe me anything. Not after the way I treated you. But I miss you. Not the help, not the money I see now that all the things I thought you were withholding were really the things I never gave back. I don't know how to fix this, but I'd like to try, if you'll let me. Love, Celeste. I didn't cry. Not then. I just folded the letter and placed it under my mug to keep the wind from taking it. Your mom, okay? I asked Clara. She's trying, she said, voice low. She quit the school job, started working at a local bakery. Wakes up at 4. Smells like cinnamon and flour now. I smiled. That woman hadn't cooked from scratch in 15 years. She seems different, Clara added. I think losing everything kind of reset her. We spent 3 days together, me and Clara. Walked the lake trail, picked wild strawberries, taught her how to plant tomatoes without drowning the roots. She asked questions, real ones, not small talk, but things that meant something. What was my grandpa like? Why'd you start your company? Do you still love Mom, even after everything? Yes, I told her, but sometimes love means letting go, especially when holding on is only keeping the wound open. She didn't flinch, just nodded like she understood more than she let on. The morning she left, I packed her a jar of strawberry jam and a note of my own. You're welcome here anytime. No need to ask. The doors never locked. A week passed, then another. The house felt different after she left. Not emptier, just awake. Then, one Sunday afternoon, I heard tires on gravel. It was Celeste this time. No makeup, no excuses, no gift bags. Just her, holding a pie tin wrapped in a towel. Peach, she said, lifting it like an offering. Still a little burned. I didn't say anything, just held the door open. She stepped inside. Can we sit? She asked. We did. Out on the porch, where the sun was low and the breeze carried the smell of pine. We didn't talk right away, just listened to the lake shift and settle. Then she said it, her voice raw and low. I was so angry at you. Not just for selling the business, but for making me look at myself. I know, you were right. I didn't see you, not really. You were just always there, like a fixture in the background holding everything up. I never thought about how heavy that must have been. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was healing. I don't expect anything, she continued. I'm not asking to move back in or to start over like nothing happened. I just want to know you. The real you, not the version who bails everyone out. I stared at her hands. No ring. I'd already heard about the divorce from Loretta, but seeing her like this, open, uncertain, trying, that was the real proof things had shifted. I'm not the same person. You remember, I told her. Neither am I. We sat there until the sun slipped behind the trees and the mosquitoes started biting. She didn't stay the night, but when she left, she hugged me. The kind that lingers, the kind you feel in your ribs. A week later, she came back, with Caleb this time. Then again, just to bring over a pie that didn't burn. One day she stayed long enough to help me weed the garden. No big speech, no dramatic apologies, just presence. That was enough. One evening, I found the old plastic flower on the windowsill. It was brittle now, bent at the edges. But I didn't throw it away. I set it beside the fresh vase of tulips Celeste brought the last time she visited. Plastic and real, past and present, side by side, because that's what healing looks like. As someone who has lived through the torment of being torn between love and pain, I want to tell you one thing. Love is not about giving unconditionally to the point of losing yourself. Family, if it's just exploitation disguised under the name home, will eventually wear down both your heart and your dignity. I used to believe a mother's love was something that never ran dry. But in the end, I had to learn how to let go just to salvage what was left of myself. I didn't do it out of anger. I did it because I finally understood. Sometimes, real love means having the courage to say no and letting someone learn to stand on their own. And you, what about you? If it were you in that place, treated like a walking wallet, ignored by the very children you raised, what would you do? I truly want to hear your answer. May God always bless you.